All right, welcome back to another episode of the Four Wide Podcast. As always, Jeremiah Stoddard, Dan Kiley, and Jonathan Williams. We are excited. It's been a pretty crazy day of National Football League football, and so we're going to break down some of that. I know Dan is pretty hype about the first game we will go ahead and talk about, so I'm going to kick it over to him. Dan, go ahead and tell us about the game that stuck out most to you today.
So one of the games that I was watching early in that early window was Baltimore and Jacksonville. Now, I wasn't watching that game with a lot of interest early in the football game, but, I'm watching Red Zone, and as the games start to get going and which ones are most competitive, that one started showing up more and more and more. And then really, you could take the first three quarters and throw them out and just go to the fourth quarter. I mean, Baltimore scores 15, Jacksonville scores 18, and let's really focus on that last drive of the game is last year, being the number one draft pick, there's a lot of pressure. We get that. And then you have Urban Meyer, who completely screwed the pooch on that whole situation down there in Jacksonville. And a lot of people were out on Trevor Lawrence after 1 year. And now he's getting Doug Peterson. And it's been kind of up and down. I get it. But today was really the first time watching Trevor Lawrence where I was like, oh, my gosh, there it is. That's what we've been waiting for. And that last drive of the game, he was in complete command, and you could see that Doug Peterson trusts him and was handing him the game. And it was like, this is your game. Go ahead and win it for me. And Trevor Lawrence did a great job of driving it down, gets the touchdown in the corner of the end zone, and I think it was Zay Jones, right? It was Zay Jones. He maybe he's inbound, maybe he's out of bounds. I know, Jeremiah, you had an opinion on what you thought about
close. It was close. Yeah, for sure. And it was Marvin Jones. Yeah,
Marvin Jones. Yes.
Yeah.
The 32-year-old Marvin Jones. And he gets to 1 foot down. They say anything above the ankle counts as 2 feet. So they said that his shin was down. They give him the catch. And then the part that really got me jacked up, and my wife was watching the game with me, and she doesn't really like the NFL that much. So, like, the fact that she's actually watching the game is a miracle in itself. But she was into it. That whole drive, the tension on that drive, everything leading up to it, the announcers were doing a great job of really bringing out that energy. They scored the touchdown, and then she's like, oh, they kicked the extra point. They're going to win it. And she's like, what are they doing? I'm like, they're going to go for 2. And she's like, why are they doing that? I'm like, because they're going to win it right now. And she's like, oh, my gosh. She's like, so if they make this, they win. If they don't get it, they lose. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, oh, my gosh. Like they could just kick the extra point. And I'm like, well, hey, they're 3-7. They got nothing to lose. Let's go for it. So they give it to him. He absolutely pumps that ball out in the flat, and that was to Marvin Jones, or that was to Zay Jones, and he catches that for the touchdown or for the 2-point conversion. They go on to win it. Actually, the thing that makes that game even crazier is after the kickoff, and then they complete a play, and then they line up not arguably, by far the best kicker in the NFL, Justin Tucker. They line him up for a 67-yard field goal. And when I tell you that thing is good from 66, that's not an exaggeration. That thing is about that short. And
that's the best kicker in the NFL right now, too.
100%.
I mean, in history, probably, honestly. Not even just right now. By the time it's all
said and done, he probably will be. He is. He doesn't miss. The dude, he don't miss.
No, so the tension in the last 5 minutes of that game was just incredible. And it 100% was the most fun I had in that entire 1 o'clock window. What did you guys think?
I mean, that was a good game. It was definitely a really good game. And I'm with you on the same thing because talking about, you're a 3-7 football team, right? You're going into that and you're going, hey, let's go for 2 and just win it right now. If we lose it, we're 3-8. What's really the big difference at that point? Do you really want to get into trying to go into overtime and do all that when you have the chance to win the game right there? You don't even know if you'll touch the ball in overtime. They could win the toss and you never get the ball back. So you don't have any ability or any control of the football game at that point in time. Same thing that I was kind of saying about this game. It's in overtime right now. It's about 6 minutes in or 6 minutes left of the game right now. The Raiders are currently playing against the Seahawks. Earlier in the game, it was like late second quarter, I think. The Raiders had driven all the way down the field, got down to about the 3 or 4 yard line, and it was a 4th and 1. And they go down there, and I'm going, shoot, just go for it. Why would you not go for it on 4th and 1 right here? You're a 3-7 football team. You need to win these games at this point. Like, be ballsy. This is the time. If you lose, you lose at this point. You're probably out of everything. Nobody's considering you being in contention anyways. Go win the football game. You do that in those situations by going for it on 4th and 1. And the announcer even said, like, after I was thinking about that, they go, they haven't had a negative yardage run all day. So go for it. You're dominating up front. You have the chance to go win that or take an early lead in that game at that point. But instead, now you're at, I think it's 34-34 in overtime right now, which, by the way, we will keep you guys updated as that game goes on. But another one that kind of stood out to me today was the Jets. The Jets.
Hold on, Stoddard. I got to mention this. Before we move on from the Baltimore game, I don't know if you guys saw this, but did you guys see the Lamar Jackson tweet after the game?
I did not.
What did he tweet?
Okay. So basically this nobody or this guy on Twitter tweets out, when someone is asking for over $250 million guaranteed like Lamar Jackson, games like this should not come down to Justin Tucker. Let Lamar walk and spend that money on a well-rounded team. Lamar then jumps in the replies, and I'll have to kind of keep it PG a little bit, but you guys will get an understanding of what he's saying in the tweet. He says, boy, STFU, y'all be capping too much on this app. MFer. He drops an MFer. Never smelt a football field, never did poop but eat male genitalia. I know that really sounds weird saying all of that without having to use the choice of words he picked out, but my goodness, what a reply. He did not hold any emotions back and just absolutely dunked on the dude in his replies.
Holy crap.
Goodness gracious. That's why I couldn't help I had to mention that one. That was just, I was rolling when I read that.
I mean, here's the thing. I understand these athletes start getting real mad about like people on like social media coming out and talking about them and stuff like. I get it. I really do, because it's their job, it's their livelihood, and so they're doing all that. And then you get all these clowns on social media saying all this stuff like that. But can we be honest, real quick? I mean, should it be coming down to a Justin Tucker game against Jacksonville?
Oh my God!
I'm being honest. Should it come down to a Justin Tucker 67-yard field goal when you have and you're playing against Jacksonville? The guy's kind of got a point. I get it. I do.
Dude,
I'm
listen,
just saying.
I don't want to switch gears so suddenly, but I swear to God, I'm not made for fantasy football. I'm just not. Dude, Josh Jacobs had 2 points at halftime. He finishes the game with 52 points.
He just scored the game-winning touchdown, by the way, 40-34. Game-winning touchdown.
I'm winning by 20 points. Now I'm losing 96-125. I mean, what the Oh my God.
Josh Jacobs just scored the game-winning touchdown. By the way, Raiders just won in overtime. 34-40.
Run?
Yeah.
On an 86, make a freaking tackle. God damn.
Moment's too big for us. Can't make a play. Pissing down our leg.
Straight down the leg.
Oh
man, that's funny. Is it a bad time to bring up? Sorry, I'm changing my TV over here so I can keep up with what's going on.
I'm pissed.
Is it a bad time to bring up right now that I'm probably going to beat you in fantasy again this week too, Dan? While we're talking about fantasy football. Yeah. No.
I've already quit that league.
Dan's taken enough beating already in fantasy football.
It's all right. Well, with that, we will go ahead and move on. The Jets and Bears today. Interesting storyline of this was everybody saw last week. We talked about this last week. Was Zach Wilson in his interview after the game comes out and they ask him straight point blank and go, "Hey, do you feel like you let your defense down today?" Because they had a crappy game last week. I'm talking god awful game last week, and he only threw for like 80 yards or something like that. Dude said no.
So and how many touchdowns did the offense score, Stoddard? How many? 0. None. Lost the game 10-3. And this is what I said last week. I said, even if you don't feel like you're responsible or like the offense let your defense down, at least act like it. Act the part of the leader that you're supposed to be as a quarterback. And I said, that is not going to bode well for him moving forward. And then what do you know? A few days later, the Jets head coach or the Jets announced that he is being benched and he's not going to be the team starter anymore. So what do you know? I mean, I'm not saying that comment and that interview had anything to do with the decision. I mean,
100%. It 100% had something to do with it.
Absolutely.
That's fine.
I'm with you guys. I think it did as well because, you are supposed to be the face of the franchise. You don't use a first-round draft pick on a quarterback like Zach Wilson if you're not hoping that he transitions into becoming the face of the New York Jets. And when you're out there making comments like that, when you're not taking responsibility for trying to throw a screen pass out to the boundary and you throw it 5 feet over the dude's head, if you're not taking responsibility for those actions, you're never going to take responsibility ever in any type of situation. And that's not going to go over well in the locker room. It's exactly kind of what you saw today with the Denver Broncos. Like, did any of you guys see that? The defensive lineman,
dude.
Yeah. The defensive lineman coming after Russell Wilson on the sidelines, which, I mean, they got their own problems over there, and they've had
we scored 3 points.
Season.
3 points. That's what he was saying. Dude.
I saw a comment that said, like, I guarantee you that after all that, Russell Wilson just said, let's ride. We good. We good. Just ridiculous, man.
Let's ride. No, but staying on topic real quick with the Jets. On that, right? Last week, they scored 3 points against New England. And yeah, it wasn't the best weather game. And New England only scored 3 points offensively as well. They ended up winning that game off of a punt return touchdown. So I understand. I get that. So, like, they also didn't have a lot going for them in that. But this week, right? Mike White starts for them at quarterback. Western Kentucky quarterback. Didn't even know who the guy was. Honestly, I really didn't. But he goes out there and he throws for 315 yards. The team goes for 466 on the day. So the offense instantly takes a huge bump up this week. And playing against Chicago, they don't have a bad defense. The Bears don't have a great offense. They are known to have a little bit better of a defense overall, and they have throughout the years. That's bad, man. You lose your starting job to a guy that I don't even know who the quarterback is. Like, I don't even know the guy. And he goes out and throws for 315 while you're sitting in street clothes on the sideline. You're not dressed out. You
don't know the legend Trevor Siemian, brother?
Siemian?
I just remember him when he was the quarterback over out in Denver.
He was. Yeah, for a little while.
Listen, I mean, you say the Bears don't have a bad defense. They traded their best defensive players away.
They might have traded their best defensive players away, but statistically, they aren't a bad defense.
Right, because they haven't had time for those statistics to adjust. I mean, because they've only been without these players for a full week or 2 weeks now. So those numbers will change a little bit. But, you know, Mike White comes in 22 of 28, 315, like you said. I mean, but the team is 7-4 now. So, you know, like when you bench your quarterback, typically it's because you're losing football games. Now, Zach Wilson played a really bad football game. This Jets defense has kept them in more games than not. Okay, so Zach Wilson is not the reason you were winning these games, but he wasn't necessarily the reason you were losing these games. Now, however, in last week's game, he was part of the reason why you lost that football game. And then when they put him on the spot and they asked him, hey, do you feel like you could have done more to help this team win, especially with your defense playing really well? And he says no. All right, so that pissed off people in that locker room. So much to the point where the leadership on that team went into Robert Saleh's office and told him, either he doesn't play or we don't play because we're tired of this bullshit. Like, the kid he's a child. Like, we don't want to deal. He's not a leader. He's a child. So Saleh went out and said, listen, I can't have my quarterback basically telling me the rest of my team sucks. Like, at some point you have to take some responsibility. So they benched him. And not only did they bench him, they put his ass in street clothes and said, you know
he
what?
Wasn't dressed out. The dude couldn't even go in the game if something happened.
No, I mean,
that was the craziest part to me.
Guys, I mean, you have to also think, like, it's not even just what he's been doing this season, but what happened right before the season started? What was the talk about Zach Wilson before the season started?
I mean, that he was incredible, right? Like, everyone was
talking
about
he was sleeping with other people's moms.
Oh, you're talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a distraction on its own as well. Like, you got that going on in your life. Like, you got that being talked about your head guy as well. Like, all that stuff does not translate into a good locker room environment. Like, when you're this is a guy that you're in the huddle with every single play. So when you pile that whole scenario on right before the season starts, you pair that up with mediocre quarterback play, and then also all these comments that you're making to the media. Yeah, you deserve to be sitting in street clothes on the sideline, not even getting a chance to throw the football around, even though you were supposed to be this amazing quarterback, turning the page, turning the corner this season in your second year in the league. Yeah, kind of like a Dave and Bellamy type moment, like, humble yourself, young man. Like, you ain't made it yet. How about you go out there and prove to us what everybody has said you're supposed to be, and do something for us, the team, and not just yourself. It ain't about you, it's about us type thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was funny too. I sent you guys the picture, and like the broadcast went straight to him on the sideline, just sitting there with his hoodie on, just sitting there in street clothes and just staring off as his team's getting killed or his team's killing the Bears. And it's just like you're looking at him going, man. I mean, they were so mad at you to the point that not only did they bench you, they said, brother, don't put on your jersey because even in the worst case scenario, you're not going in the game. I mean, what kind of message does that send to you? I'm like, the thing that I want to look at, especially after Mike White went out there and threw for 315 yards today, what happens next week, right? Was this just a punishment in the sense of, all right, we're going to sit here and go, you're not playing in any circumstance today, but you're going to come back and play next week, possibly?
Nope.
Or do y'all think that he still sits? As Dan, I can see what you're kind of getting at. Like, I take it that you think he still sits after this week.
Oh, it's already been determined. Robert Sala already came out and said they're moving forward with Mike White.
The freaking punter got a pass attempt today before Zach Wilson did.
No,
he had
listen,
a pass attempt today.
Didn't he complete it too? When they completed
No,
it?
he didn't. He
Oh,
didn't.
okay. Never mind.
One of the things that you have to look at is that, like, obviously the media reacts to certain different things, but now, a lot of the articles that are coming out now is that this is an offense that you can trust their weapons now. They have somebody who can facilitate, move the ball, keep the chains moving, and who the team responds to. And that's been the biggest criticism and the biggest issue is that the teammates on that team do not have a connection with Zach Wilson. And I don't care. Listen, you can say whatever you want to. You can talk about whatever you want to. If you are a quarterback that nobody will follow, I don't care what talents you have, you're not a quarterback. A quarterback is an alpha. A quarterback can walk in the room, and when he walks in the room, every eye is turned to him. A quarterback can take over a huddle. Quarterback, when he walks in that huddle, you have every single guy on that field has to be able to, take a bullet for that guy, and they just have to want to play for him. And that's one of the biggest traits that is very, very hard to measure on paper. You have to be around somebody to understand it. Everybody in your life, Jeremiah, Jonathan, in your life, that there is somebody where when you're around them, you want to be around them. Like you don't want to be far from them. You follow them around. You hang on every word that they say. You can't explain it, but you just do. And that is an alpha. That is a magnetism of a person. And Zach Wilson does not have that apparently. And the players on that team have made it very clear. They don't have a connection with him, and they are not upset that he was benched. And Mike White, for whatever reason, obviously he probably is less talented, but these players have a magnetism to him, and they are drawn to him, and they're willing to play for him. And at the end of the day, if you're a coach, you have to put the guy out there that your team wants to play for.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, here's the thing. Mike White comes in, all of a sudden turns them into, continues to win and bring that leadership on the field. Hopefully that'll translate over to a different guy named Mike White in Athens with Georgia basketball.
How about him, baby?
How about him? How about them dogs? I'm telling you what. But another game that was a pretty big one today was the Chargers and Arizona Cardinals, right? That was a pretty close one. It came down 25-24 with a late touchdown score by the Chargers to take the lead on that. And then obviously didn't get anything out of our Call of Duty playing quarterback, Kyler Murray, who was playing again this week. He hadn't played in a couple weeks. I guess Double XP weekend ended, and he was back on the field this week.
First win since the new Call of Duty came out.
Tell them.
No, they lost. They lost again.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I thought they had won because, like, last one I checked, this is what I talked to you before the show. I was like, I was going to come in here and talk about how horrible that division has been with the Chiefs and the Chargers and how disappointing they've been with Oakland Raiders.
And then
you were like, oh, they just freaking won. I was like, well, dang it. There goes that whole segment I was going to do. But
tell them what the text I sent said. What did the text I sent? What did it say?
Which one? Hold on. I don't know. Tell us.
Dan texts us a lot, guys. Hold on.
No, it was the last thing I texted you. I said, hey, I'll be on as soon as this game's over. I want to see what Call of Duty
Oh, yeah. He said, let's see what Call of Duty can do.
Okay.
He did. He said that right before he jumped on live.
Joke.
That was
sorry.
Funny. He did. That was pretty funny. But no, it's a pretty good game. Like you said, the Chargers are. I'm trying to pull it up so I can see and give it to you. They're sitting right behind Kansas City after they're a couple games behind Kansas City, right? But they are above, Las Vegas and Denver. Denver is terrible. I mean, absolutely terrible. So it looks like Kansas City is going to walk away with that division like they consistently done lately. So you don't really expect them to, have too much competition there. But it was a pretty big win for the Chargers today to stay on the right track. How do you feel about it, Dan?
Yeah, can we talk about that? We don't have to go into depth on that game because there's not a whole lot of meat on that bone. But the Chiefs are 9-2 this year, 5-1 at home. And I say 9-2, that seems like they've just been cruising. But if you've actually paid attention this year, for whatever reason, the Chiefs don't feel as dominant as they were in the past. And part of that reason is because they got rid of Tyreek Hill. They've had some guys that have been injured, and their running back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, has just been terrible. I mean, I don't know what the problem is, but he has been god-awful this year at football, the game that he's paid a lot of money to play. He's not good at it, and he's a running back, and he can't gain yards, and that's kind of like what he's paid to do. But at the same, and I've been on record, I thought the biggest whiff in the NFL draft in recent memory was them taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire over DeAndre Swift. I thought that would be just a cheat code. But then if you look at what Swift is doing, he ain't doing a whole heck of a lot either right now. Obviously, injuries are a part of his issue.
He's also at the Lions and not the Chiefs, though.
Yeah,
so that
sure,
does make a difference.
absolutely. But then again, they couldn't afford him. So, the Chiefs had to figure out how to manage their money better because they paid guys way too much money. And this is that part of the problem that we've run into now with some teams where when you G up the quarterback and the quarterback's not on that cheap deal anymore, now you can't afford to pay anybody. And the Chiefs were winning a lot of football games when Patrick Mahomes was on that rookie deal and not making a whole lot of money. And people forget because he's so damn good that Patrick Mahomes only been in the league for like 5 or 6 years, boys. And he's just out of that rookie deal. And now he's getting G'd up. And look, what was the first thing they had to do after they paid the man? They had to get rid of Tyreek Hill. You telling me this Chiefs team wouldn't be even more dominant with Tyreek Hill on it? And they went and got Juju Smith-Schuster thinking that he could fill that role. He has not done it to that level. That Scantling guy is hit or miss. And Mecole Hardman can't stay healthy. So they're not as dominant as they were, but they're still 9-2. And that's the part that's shocking to me is how good their record is. Yet I watch them, I'm like, damn, they're not as good as they used to be.
Well, I mean, there's reasons why, like Tom Brady, especially as of recent, when he was working on new deals, he would say, like, I'm willing to take a pay cut to make sure that you're able to fill other spots in this roster. Now, I know Tom Brady's made his money. He's made his big money. He's been in the league for a long time.
He's in the league to win, not to make money anymore.
But yeah, exactly what Stoddard's saying is he wants to win more than anything. He would rather go get another Super Bowl ring, add it to his litany of accolades, as opposed to reeling in a bunch of money and then the rest of the team just kind of be because heck, especially as a quarterback, when you're able to spend money elsewhere, like you're talking about, Dan, and you can go get other receivers to pair up with a Mecole Hardman and a Travis Kelce, then you become a lot more dangerous than you already are, as opposed to you're stuck with what you got. You got to cut your best wide, or not cut your best wide receiver, but you got to get him out of there, free up some other space, and instead you go get an old-timey Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who was with Green Bay for a long time and really didn't do a whole lot, and then a Juju Smith-Schuster who's just been kind of like, okay, like nothing amazing, and now you're stuck in this position. But nonetheless, still winning ball games, so you really can't even complain.
Well, one of the things that you mentioned there is Tom Brady taking pay cut because he made his money. Tom Brady never made his money. The fact is he had a wife who makes $150 million a year off of endorsements alone. That's not even her Victoria's Secret money.
But I mean,
the dude still was making like $20 million a year, was he not? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
When you've been in the league for 100 years, you eventually
played
get your
for 15
money.
years.
But like Zach in
or
our
20 years,
said,
20
he's
something years.
fixing to use a chunk of money to Giselle. He's not losing money to Giselle. Giselle's going to lose money to Tom because
That's true.
he makes more money.
Yeah,
so
she has more
Tom
money
ain't
than he
losing
does.
shit. Tom ain't losing nothing, guys, because she makes 3 to 1 the amount of money that he makes, 4 to 1, 5 to 1 if you take her Victoria's Secret money into it.
But the point is, he's made plenty of money in the league. Even if you look at just his contracts alone, as far as a football player goes, the dude's made plenty of money throughout playing football.
He's played for 40 years.
Exactly, but that's my point. So at this point, the point is he's in his 40s still playing, like mid 40s, still playing football. Not because he's worried about making another paycheck, but because he wants to win. He's got that competitive drive and nature of him. So the point is, like, he's willing to say, yeah, I'll take $5 million left on less on my contract. Hell, even $10 million less on my contract than I could technically get if I went somewhere else this year, because I want you to take that money and I want you to go get me some weapons to throw to. I want you to get some guys on defense that'll help me win games if I can't get it done on the offensive side, that'll keep us in games. It's a mindset difference on that, and that's what you see with him. And when we talked about this a little bit earlier, talking about Lamar Jackson, he's out here looking for a $250 million contract. Whatever team gets him for that, that's going to take up a lot of the capital that they have to be able to spend money around him. So whatever team he ends up on, the odds of them being the top of the NFL for a while are probably pretty slim because they cannot build a lot of stuff around him because they're going to have to go get guys cheaper moving forward because that is a lot of money to pay a quarterback.
And that's an interesting conversation to kind of get into because you take a look at Baltimore's roster. What do we always say about Lamar and what makes it so amazing when he does win a lot of ball games over there? It's that he really doesn't have a lot of people to throw to because you list off the names, like Rashad Bateman, like maybe he's kind of transpiring into something, but he's on the IR right now. He's done for the year. You got Devin Duvernay, who probably not a lot of people know who he is. And then you got Mark Andrews, which I know Mark Andrews is a good tight end, but even though he is a good tight end, he's not like this top tier up there with Travis Kelce type of tight ends either. And then we've talked about the running back room as well. Like that's nothing to brag about either. So if you are the Baltimore Ravens and you do want to go and pay him all that money, that's more money that you're putting aside, investing into Lamar Jackson, and that you're not able to go spend and get the dude freaking weapons to throw to, which has been their issue.
Leading receiver today, Josh Oliver. Anybody know who Josh Oliver is?
No freaking clue.
San Jose.
So he belongs in the government.
They had to get rid of Hollywood Brown.
Yeah,
because they didn't have the money for him. So I mean, and I jokingly I've said that signing Lamar Jackson is the most Falcons thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, all signs point to that collision of just ineptitude of him getting paid way too much money and the Falcons being the team to pay it. Because that's just the most Falcons thing ever. And oh my God, that's going to happen. It just is. And listen, I think Lamar's awesome, but when you pay a quarterback that much money, I mean, to your point, like Rude just said it, you guys have said it, everybody said it, just when a quarterback makes that kind of money, dude, you cannot put a team around them. Look what happened in Seattle because Russell Wilson has proven that he's not an elite quarterback. Thank God, because I couldn't stand that dude. And he got way too much praise for way too long. He is not an elite quarterback, but he had an elite team around him. The minute they had to pay that man and had to start making some changes and making some cuts, that team went to the toilet. They moved his butt over to Denver, and Denver's like, we got our guy. We're going to pay him a ton of money, but we can't put nothing around him, and they are garbage. They are so garbage that they lost today to arguably the worst team in the NFL, which is the Panthers, who somehow continue to win football games. They had Sam Darnold out there looking like he was an actual real quarterback. I texted you guys earlier today. I was like, Darnold kind of looks like he's good today, but it's because the Broncos are that bad. And Russell Wilson
looked okay in the sense of like he didn't look bad when he was throwing stuff. They still only let him throw the ball 19 times. Like he was 11 for 19, 164 yards. He looked decent when he was throwing the ball. But that offense is such a weird one in Carolina. They've done that a few times this season. Even like they've been letting other people play. And it just, you don't see a lot of production from the quarterback spot, yet they're still winning some of these games. I mean, it's because even with that, they ran the ball pretty well today. So they ended up with 349 yards of total offense. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, I wasn't 100% done, but I did have a stat that I wanted to share that will blow your freaking mind. Maybe you saw it, maybe you did. If you're listening out there, get ready for this stat. Carson Wentz has not played football since week 6. We are in week 12 if you have not been paying attention. Russell Wilson has not missed a football game. Russell Wilson has less passing touchdowns than Carson Wentz, who has not played since week 6.
Oof. Carson Wentz got benched too. So yeah, that's pretty bad. That is pretty bad because Carson Wentz got benched and he lost his starting job to Heineke.
Tyler Heineke.
Heineke, which by the way, he gets to go get him some red and black Jays today. So how we feeling about that one? Let's go ahead and shift to that game.
Tyler Heineke should be Brooks' best friend. They should be best friends.
Dude's going to have quite the shoe collection by the end of this season. I'm telling you.
Between the two of them, that J collection would be just beautiful.
Oh yeah, he's got another one. Speaking of to clue everybody else in that's listening that doesn't know off the top of their head, Falcons lost 13-19 to Washington today. Heineke, however you say it, leads them to another win. Every time they win a game, he goes every time he wins a game as a starting quarterback, he goes out and buys a new pair of Jordan 1s in that team's color that he beat. So he's going to go get some red and black, Jordan 1s this week after beating the Falcons. Falcons had another Not so good game. Not such a great performance out of Marcus Mariota again. Only throwing for 174 yards on 15 for 25. Did run the ball fairly well today. 167 yards rushing. Not a bad day on the ground. But it still was just, once again, you got Marcus Mariota running for 49 yards of that, and that's just not a great way for us to kind of win. Go ahead, Dan.
The only accurate way to discuss this game is you have to talk about the end of the game. The Falcons were driving with a couple of minutes left to go in the game. They were inside, I believe, the 10-yard line, had a chance to win the game. Marcus Mariota throws an interception. Okay. Not only that. So that's bad, right? And this is how Marcus Mariota has operated all year. He's played well enough to keep us in the game. And then in the critical moments, he's either fumbled the ball and thrown an interception, thrown incomplete. He done something to lose the game. He actively does something to lose the game. Today, he actively did something to lose the game. Throws an interception in the end zone, okay? Well, that's bad. That's terrible. Well, the defense stands on their head and forces a fourth down. So the Falcons are going to get the ball back with one more chance to make a run at this thing. They run into the damn punter. Like, are you freaking kidding? Can you be that inept? Oh, my God. Like, first of all, you have a chance to win the damn football game, and you throw the interception. Then your defense stands on their head, and then your special teams. I'm trying to have a positive attitude with this Falcons team because I know that they're not supposed to be good this year, and they have been more entertaining than any one of us thought that they were going to be, right? But this Marcus Mariota thing, it's starting to really, really, really irk me. And I know Jonathan and I have opposite views on this. But listen, if you don't want Ritter to play, then go find somebody. There's got to be somebody you can play because this is getting ridiculous. Like he's costing us games. So you either need to lose every game or start winning every game because you can't. The worst place in the NFL to be is dead in the middle, and the Falcons are dead in the middle.
Well, I mean, also though, Arthur Smith has told us what they're doing right now. They have already said that we are not going to bench Marcus Mariota while we are still in the hunt for potential playoff spot. And surprisingly, even though how bad the Falcons have been, or really not even how bad, how average the Falcons have been, so is the rest of their division. The Buccaneers today lost to the Cleveland Browns. Nick Chubb scored the game-winning touchdown in overtime, and they're able to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We already got to Carolina, and then we also talked about New Orleans, who I believe went scoreless today against San Francisco. They lost, 10-0? Wasn't that the final score to that game?
13.
Which one?
San Francisco
and the New Orleans Saints.
13-0, I think.
Yeah,
13-0. Whoa, what a barn burner right there. So yeah, your entire division sucks, or is like the top two teams, which are the Falcons and Tampa Bay, are like you're okay, and then the rest of it is Carolina looking like they were going to tank, and then now they're winning ball games. To then now the New Orleans Saints as well, not even having a freaking clue what they're doing. So there you go. What Harrison is saying right now, with the NFC South being so bad, it seems like Marcus Mariota finished out the season as a starter. Exactly.
That's true. Because he told you. He already told you. Yeah, he already told you that he wasn't going to bench Mariota while they're in a playoff contention. And right now they're technically one spot behind Tampa Bay, and they're in playoff contention. I understand what you mean, Dan. At this point, I understand that you might be losing some games because of Marcus Mariota, but that tells me that Arthur Smith thinks that if they were to be putting Ritter in at this point, that's them giving up on the season. That's what that tells you. So that tells you what's going on in the locker room or on the practice field is that he thinks that if he were to put Ritter in right now, it's giving up on the season.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Listen, there are a lot of people starting to turn on Arthur Smith, which I don't agree with, okay? I think Arthur Smith is doing an amazing job of keeping the Falcons in these games when they have no business being in these games. We do not have the talent that these other teams do, yet he finds a way to keep us competitive. Now, there is a part of the conversation that I am willing to have, and is he the type of coach who can keep you competitive but can't win football games? Because we've all seen guys who are good football coaches. The guys love them. The teams play hard for them. All of those things are true. They just, for whatever reason, they can't coach in big. Look, Mike Smith was king at this, where
It was close games,
Mike Smith, I mean, and even Dan Quinn to some extent, but Mike Smith primarily, because think about the dumpster fire that Mike Smith inherited with the Atlanta Falcons, how he was able to completely change the culture here in Atlanta that made us want to win, made us feel like we had the right to win. He's the first coach in Atlanta Falcons history to have back-to-back winning seasons. Wrap your freaking mind around that. 1966 up to 2000 and something before we had our first back-to-back winning season. Mike Smith deserves a lot of credit, but the biggest issue with Mike Smith is that he could not win games that matter. When it came down to his coaching decisions, he could not win football games. Arthur Smith is doing an amazing job, but we have to start evaluating, is he able to win football games? And if you are a coach who is putting a guy out there who is actively losing football games, one of two things. Either you are telling us that you can't draft worth a shit, and you went out and got a quarterback who's got no business being in the league, or you're unable to separate your emotion from your coaching, and you will not step aside from a quarterback who's making mistakes. One of the two things is true. Either you can't handle this situation and you're too buddy-buddy with him, or you drafted like shit and now we're having to pay the price. So one of those things is true.
I think you really can't. I've always said this. I think it applies to college coaches, and I think it really applies to the NFL coaches to some extent as well. 3 years. By year 3, you know exactly who you have in a head coach. I say that for college because, of course, recruiting cycles, they got to get their own guys and whatnot. And then by year 3, those guys are starting to play. And then by year 3 for the NFL as well, like your first 2 years of draft picks are either still on the team, and those that are still on the team, they should be your main guys. Like they're your main contributors as well. And then you get a third draft class in there as well. And that's kind of where by then you should have plugged all of the holes in your boat. Like the boat should no longer be sinking. You should be floating and you should be sailing. Like you should be on the go at this point, competing and contending. So I think that the Falcons this year have shown that they're like right on the verge of being able to be a contender. They're so close because there's so many bright moments to them. But then you also have these lows, these really low lows. And so I think that shows that they're close. They're really close. And that maybe if you give them another year, which they will, and you get another draft class in there, you fill those extra holes with some really good football players in this next draft, then maybe. And then by that point, you can kind of get a good idea of who Arthur Smith is and is he your long-term solution to this problem.
Jeremiah, do me a favor and put up Zach's comment.
Yeah, I saw that one too.
So, Zach, I wanted your comment up there because if this is the case, right, I'm on board. I get it. If
that's
this
what I've
is
been trying to say. That's what I've been
but
saying.
What I'm saying is,
time.
but then if that's the case, there needs to be some transparency where he comes out and says, hey, listen, I want Desmond Ridder to take this entire year to learn. He hasn't said that. He has made it seem like, and I'm not saying it's true, but from a fan's perspective, just only having to go off of his comments alone, he's made it seem like he's not capable, right? Or, they would make the change if he was capable. So if the situation is that you just want him to have an entire year to learn with no pressure, then just say that. Say, hey, listen, guys, win, lose, or draw this, he is not going to play this year. I want him to get accustomed to this, whatever. Just do that. What is there to lose? And you're actually covering your own ass by doing it.
Did Kansas City come out and say that about Patrick Mahomes?
Yes.
No, they didn't.
Andy Reid did.
He came out and said that he wasn't going to play him all season because he wanted him to learn the system.
He said that Patrick Mahomes was not going to play that first year. He said he wanted.
I didn't see him actually say that. I'll go back and look at that because I didn't see that. But that's fine. I'm not saying you're lying. I'm saying I didn't see that part. But they also had Alex Smith at quarterback at the time too.
Yes. He said there was no He said there was no reason to put Mahomes in the game. There's no reason to force his hand. That Alex Smith was more than capable and gave him an opportunity. Now listen, the two situations are completely different. And I know that's where Jonathan's going, is because they are completely
not where
different.
I'm going actually.
All right, go ahead. Where are you going?
I was just gonna say, like, Dan, you especially, and all Georgia fans should be used to not getting this 100% transparency with head coaches. You think Kirby Smart would be sitting out here saying like, oh, well, we're not playing Carson Beck right now because blah, blah, blah. We never get that from Kirby Smart. And that's like, okay. I don't think that Arthur Smith owes it to the fans or anybody to be 100% transparent with what his plan is right now, especially like I said again.
You could also see that being disrespectful to Marcus Mariota.
Exactly. Like I know Marcus Mariota kind of knows the writing on the wall a little bit. When you sign a 2-year deal with a team, right, it's kind of just like you're filling in this year, this gap for us more than likely, or you at least have the opportunity to earn your chance. So I just don't think, you can't go out there. I don't think you can go out there and say something like that when you are kind of in the midst of potentially making a spot. And I just think it kind of throws things all for a loop. And it may be kind of, I don't know. I just don't think that he should be required or expected to come out there and say that about what they're doing with the quarterbacks.
Well, the bigger issue is that Kirby Smart is not going to get run out of town here. And Arthur Smith has not had a winning season, and he does not win football games. So go ahead.
Early in Kirby Smart's career, before we won the national championship, you don't think that was on the line when he was not telling us what was going on with Justin Fields? I mean, he wasn't putting Justin Fields in over Jake Fromm
last year.
Last year, everyone wanted the transparency before we won the national championship to see JT Daniels come back in the game and keep playing, but he kept playing with Stetson and didn't want to tell you that, hey, JT just isn't going to play this year. He kept leaving it open as we're not going to play him just yet, or he's not quite ready yet, but the dude was ready. He just didn't want to put him in the game.
Were we losing football games? No. Has he ever had a losing record?
But did we start the season? Did we start the season in that where we were expected to win 2 games on the year? I mean, he's playing with house money this season. This is a season that nobody expected him to have. So, the fact that he's in playoff contention, I take it. You got to read between the lines with it. When he's saying that he doesn't think Ritter's going to be able to carry us to a playoff type situation right now. That's not disrespect of the kid. That's him telling us he's not ready to do that by coming out to the media. This is what you're wanting, and you got to read into what he said. He came out to the media and said, "I'm not putting Ritter in while we have a chance at the playoffs." That's the comment that you seem to want, but you're not willing to accept. That's him telling you he's not playing him this year, because this year we are now in playoff contention. To me, that's how I take it. He told you that. He gave you the answer you want.
I just with Arthur, both things can be true, right? I think he's doing a fantastic job, right? But I think at some point,
not after this season.
Yeah, he may not. He may or may not. We'll see.
You think he's going to get right out of town this season?
No.
Damn. The Falcons.
No,
okay. I was about to say, I was like, bro, before the season, people were saying this is what the Falcons should do with the number 1 pick. That's the territory we were talking about.
No, he's got this year regardless, unless he does something stupid. Like, I mean, look, you can play your way out of it, right? But I think I've said it every single week. I think he's doing an amazing job. Why the hell would I say he's going to get fired? I ain't saying that.
That's why he brought the sweater vest. That's why he brought the sweater vest.
He's the Arthur Smith get up. He's got it. He's got it ready to
go. I'm not trying to run the man.
I'm just making sure.
I'm just saying at some point you do have to win football games, and I think a overarching thing that we do have to keep in mind. Okay. Everybody needs to keep in mind is Arthur Blank said when he bought this team, he's going to win a Super Bowl before he gets rid of this team, right? Time's running out on Arthur. I ain't trying to put anybody in the grave. I would never do that. But Arthur's he's in his 80s now, right? If I'm not, maybe I'm wrong. I believe Arthur's either late 70s or early 80s, and his health is getting worse, and he's running out of time. So in situations like that, people become very impatient. So that was my point. I'm not trying to run Arthur out of town. I'm just saying there is going to be more pressure to win because Arthur wants to win that Super Bowl. That's all I'm getting at.
Yeah. So, and I'm not saying you're wrong on it'll be interesting to see. I guess Arthur does have a championship with a team he owns, just not with the Falcons. Just Atlanta United got one for him.
Listen,
but
you don't buy an NFL team because you need the money.
No,
you buy an NFL team because you are rich and you need a toy, and that toy is a bragging rights amongst other extremely rich people, and they meet together multiple times a year, and it is a dick contest. And if you don't think so, ask any one of those owners. They will. Jerry Jones is the king of telling you that. He's like, when I walk in there, I want everybody to know I'm the best there is, the best there ever was, and the best there will be. And Arthur Blank wants in that club too. He's buddies, like good friends with Robert Kraft. You don't think when he sits down with Robert Kraft, he wants to say, look at my Super Bowl ring? I mean, because Robert Kraft is like, hey, look at mine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's valid. I think that's valid for sure. Before we get into the picks, does anybody have anything else that they wanted to get into tonight?
No,
all right,
sir.
Cool. Well, as as we've all been doing, right? We're waiting all day for Sunday night. I see the song playing in the background over here before this game gets going. I knew I would get Dan with that. But here we go. You got the Packers at the Eagles. Eagles are a 6.5-point favorite in this game, sitting at 9-1 at home against the Packers. How are we feeling about that game so far? Dan, before it starts.
All I have to say is last week we actually got some freaking picks right. Holy hell. In this game, it's hard to go against the Eagles. I know we're running out of time here, so I'll go fast, but I don't know what the hell. Let's go with the Packers. Why not?
Ooh, you went with the Packers?
Why not?
Ooh.
I don't have money on it. Shit.
All right, Jonathan, go ahead.
Screw whatever Dan just said. I'm going with the Eagles. Boom. Locked in.
Going with the Eagles. Anything to add to the game or anything?
No. Just Eagles. Head to head with Dan. Give it to me. Eagles.
Head to head with. I mean, I'm gonna take that side too. I'm taking the Eagles on this. I think that Aaron Rodgers, like we talked about earlier, he doesn't really have anybody to throw to around him. He doesn't have all those weapons. Feels like a game that is gonna be where the Eagles can go out there and score at home and put some stuff together. And I just don't exactly see Green Bay being able to keep up with them. It might be a closer game. 6.5-point spread could cover. They could cover the spread. Talking about the Green Bay Packers, they might cover that spread. But I do expect the Eagles to win. Next game is Monday night. Steelers at the Colts. The Colts are 2.5-point favorite of that game.
Oh, that is a doo-doo football game. I mean, if that,
Yeah.
What was the line on that game? Steelers
2.5 for the Colts. The Colts are favored.
Oh wow. Okay.
It's at home.
So you have two teams that were supposed to be significantly better than what they are. The Steelers are probably going to win the football game, but I really want the Colts to win, and I really want this Jeff Saturday thing to work out. And the reason I do is just because of all the bull crap he got for taking that. I mean, like if they call you, you're supposed to say no. So come on, but I think the Steelers probably win that football game, but I'm going to go with the Colts just because I want to.
Well, I'm just going against you, Dan. I'm going with the Steelers, and I'll go ahead and give you a little prediction.
Jonathan's in a freaking mood today, dude.
I'll go ahead and tell you. I'll give you a prediction for the game. George Pickens tomorrow, 127 yards and 2 touchdowns. Book it right now. Go ahead and put it right now. Put it in the books, Dan, on your head right now. That's what's going on tomorrow.
That's quite the game. All right, I'm also taking the Steelers today. I just don't think that I know the Colts are at home. They just don't have it this year in general. I know they've won a couple games as of late, or they won a game with Jeff Saturday as the coach. I think they lost last week, didn't they?
Yeah.
But the issue is they're only scoring 15 points a game. And I know that the Steelers are only scoring 17 a game, but it's not going to be a good football game. I think it's going to be a really close game. I think that spread being 2.5 is really tough because a 3-point game is very much in play for this. Hell, even a 1-point game is very much in play for this type of game. It's not going to be a high scoring one. Let's see what let's see if it has the over. Oh yeah, the over under is 39.5. I'm taking the under on that. Yeah, I'm taking the under. I don't think each team scores 20 points in that game. I think it's a team type game. I think you
Monday
see
Night Football has been some poo-poo,
something
man.
like that.
Bro, hold on, time out.
First
of all, y'all coming at me like I'm crazy. I told you the Steelers are probably going to win the game. I'm just picking the Colts just because I want them to win. But I told you the Steelers are probably going to win the game.
This man's out here picking both picks. Both picks, he's saying the other team's going to win, but he's picking the other one. You know what that is? That's going, I'm going to bet on the team that I don't think could win, but I'm going to tell everybody that I think the other team's going to win. So that way, when it happens, I told you they were going to win.
I'm telling you who I want to win.
That's like Lee Corso coming out on game day.
You're supposed to come out here and say who you think is going to win.
I think Michigan's going to win, but give me the Buckeye head.
Okay, the Eagles and the Steelers are going to win the football game, but who I want to win is the Packers. And the
intentionally take the L. Then that's what you're like. This is what he's going to do. Started. This is what's going to happen.
When have I ever done that though?
He's covering his butt.
I've never bragged about
that's
picking
what
a
he's
game
doing right now.
No.
So that way, when the Steelers win or whatever, he's covered both ways. He could just say like, "Oh, well, I told you they were probably going to win, but this is who I wanted to win," or vice versa. I'll be like, "I told you my picks won this week." That's what he's going to do.
I've never done that. You've never known me to do that. Not ever. I've never
drop your
said that
nuts
one
and
time.
make a pick, man.
Drop your nuts. Drop your nuts.
That's all you got to do is just put your cleats in the ground. And
All
drop
you
your
gotta do
nuts.
is drop your nuts, man. That's all you gotta do. I'm taking
I
it
didn't
from
realize the cleats in the ground was such a thing until somebody said it, and then I started paying attention. Every coach says cleats in the ground,
Everybody.
and now we got Brooks saying cleats in the ground on his show. He's like, "Oh, you just got to get your cleats in the ground." I'm like, "Oh shit, everybody now."
All right. Well, you got our picks for the game. You got that game about to kick off here in just a minute. It is 8:20. You know that game's about to start. I see the NFL preview coming up on there right now. So we will let you guys go. As always, we enjoyed you guys being here. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share with everybody if you enjoyed our show today. And we will see you guys next week. Y'all have a great Sunday night.